Yes, it's Joe Walsh.
It's like your favorite station.
Hey y'all, this is Kristin Casey, author of Rock Monster, My Life with Joe Walsh.
Just like they do on the radio.
And you are listening to Joe K on the Play That Rock and Roll podcast. Now it's all about the podcast, and I'm telling you, Joe K is one of the best.
On the radio.
My favorite stories is the night Stevie Nicks came to visit. That is such a funny story, and it's such a funny look at her during, again, sort of some years that are like, maybe I haven't read enough about Fleetwood Mac, but I don't know a lot about her in like the late 80s, early 90s. So what did you think of Stevie, especially knowing that she and Joe used to date? Was there any tension there on that front?
You know, it's funny because Joe had mentioned that early in our relationship, but the way he had described it was, it was a tour thing. You know, I mean, it was a road thing, a road relationship. We toured together, and he had downplayed it. And so a couple years later, 3 years later or something, I'm living with him. And he tells me he'd heard from Stevie and she was in town and wanted to have dinner with him. And so he had said, well, I'm in a relationship. And she had said immediately, well, bring her. I'd love to meet her. And so I was just beyond excited. I mean, I admit freely, I kind of fangirled out like, oh, what am I going to wear? Like I was I was a huge Stevie Nicks fan on every level, personally, in a fashion sense, in a music sense. I mean, she was a goddess to me. And so I was super excited. And then Joe, Rick, the bass player, and Gino Michelini were hanging out at the house. And Joe was laughing at me like I was, well, who cares what you wear? You know, it's just Stevie. And then either Rick or Gino, I forgot, said, she's probably more nervous about meeting you. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then that's when I found out that she's been carrying a torch for Joe all these years. And he had never told me that. Yeah. And I was like, is this true? And Joe was like, I guess, I don't know. You know, like he's kind of, and I'm sure in his mind, he's thinking this is going to be the most awkward dinner ever because now, you know, but I was like, well, clearly she has very good taste. I mean, I couldn't falter that. And the fact that she had been so gracious to, if she really was still in love with him, to invite me and was so sweet to me. And she seemed nervous, you know, I don't know if it was nervous about being with him or nervous about meeting his girlfriend or both. But she was so sweet, and she had this pendant stuck in her hair. So we show up at the restaurant and she kept trying to get it out while she was talking with Joe and me. And I offered to get it out for her. And she's like, thank you. I've been trying to get this out for hours. And so I very carefully, I'm like, you know, I'm not going to harm one hair on the goddess's head. Stevie had that beautiful, you know, so I very carefully
really curly. Really curly.
She had it straight at the time. She had straightened it.
Oh, yeah. I remember the photo. Okay.
Yeah. And then she gave it to me, like as a thank you gift. She's like, insist I have it. Yeah. And she was just delightful. And then she comes, so we invited her to the house after dinner. And now keep in mind, she did not go to the bathroom at the restaurant. We were at La Toque on Sunset, and she never left the table. She got in our car and came with us to the house, never used the bathroom while she was there, even though she was there all night. So, and there was Coke being passed around. She never did any. Mm-hmm. And yet she was such a chatterbox, and her conversation was getting a little wackier and wackier as the night went on. And she had all this jewelry that she had taken off, and she kept putting it in different places. And, you know, there's like, I forget how many people were there, like 6 or 8 tops, not even that. And people kept bringing her jewelry and saying, will you put that in your purse? You know, and she kept, and then putting it somewhere else. And then eventually she gets on the piano and she's playing, and it's like 4 something in the morning, and we're all up there just sort of watching the Stevie show, and Joe is like, pulls me aside, like I'm dropping hints, she won't leave, and I'm like, oh, I got this, you know. So I sit down and I try to gently drop, you know, big hints about we're going to go to bed, and it's been so lovely having you here. And she's like, oh yeah, good night, you know, and like she's literally continues to play. Like she was the guest who wouldn't leave, and it was the strangest thing. And Rick the bass player was like cracking up behind us. Finally, Gino mentions that her limo is waiting in our driveway and has been all night. And so I go out there, and the limo driver is like clearly been in this position before, and he's like, I got this, just get her outside, I'll get her in the car. And like we had this whole sort of, you know, subversive strategy to get her away from the piano and outside so we could get rid of her. It was hilarious. I mean, I adored. And then she called the next day because she had left her jewelry at the house.
Can you imagine being that driver?
Oh my God, that driver was awesome.
What
Like he knew exactly how to handle her. It was fantastic. But no, she was lovely. She was wonderful. And I hope she didn't take offense to that story, because I'm assuming she's read the book. The truth is, I mean, she wasn't on coke, but I asked Joe about it. He said he thought she was on some sort of pills, and she has admitted as much, to being on some sort of pharmaceuticals at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, Klonopin.
In the interview I saw her, she said she had a pill addiction for a while, and it was in those years.
Yeah, she said, Klonopin, and she described that as worse than the coke.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Klonopin, but
I always thought it knocked you out, but your account is that she was very chatty. So, you know, that's just a testament to her personality. But what a life resume thing. Had to show Stevie the door.
Yeah, I know. I mean, just... that is probably my favorite story in the book for that reason, because it was the most unexpected celebrity experience ever.
Oh, yeah, I see that. Well, you know, what's funny is just like, I know that it wasn't too long ago where she did an interview and she said the two great loves of her life were Lindsey Buckingham and Joe.
Do you still love him?
I will always love Joe. It will probably be hard for me to ever find anybody else that ever makes me feel like Joe did.
And I don't know if you follow Fleetwood Mac, but last year she fired Lindsey. So
I'll tell you, Joe is one of the most unique men I've ever met.
Yeah.
He might be, I mean, I've never met anyone quite like him. And a lot of people who know him will say the same thing. He's an incredibly sensitive individual, but there's just something very, very special about him. It's hard to describe. And he's a little, you know, he's a little different. The way he walks and talks and even looks is not what you would call conventionally, you know, he's not attractive in that conventional sense. And yet there's something compelling and deeply lovable about him, and the fact that Stevie Nicks calls him the love of her life. He was the love of my life. That does not surprise me at all.
well, I think a picture's worth 1,000 words, and if you look at the insert "Forgot Any Gum," that sort of echoes what you were saying.
Listen to me now. You know I'd rather be alone than be without you. Don't you know?
Absolutely one of my favorite podcasts. Got to give him a listen.
Yes!
For me, then do it for yourself.